Have you ever woken up and thought, what's the point of all this? Dragging yourself through the same routine, feeling like you're sleepwalking through a life that's lost its spark. You scroll social media and feel nothing, or maybe a twinge of envy and disgust. You clock into work numb to the grind. Perhaps you've dabbled in self-help quick fixes, motivational quotes on your feed, a new productivity hack, maybe a cold shower routine. Yet the existential emptiness still lurks. It's as if you're living on autopilot, doing everything right by society's standards, and yet something vital is missing. In the dead of night, when you're alone with your thoughts, you might whisper the question, is this all there is? This question, raw, painful, and honest, is your soul's alarm bell. It signals that you may be stuck in a rut, trapped in an invisible cage of habits, fears, and doubts. It's a modern malaise that many Western men in their 20s and 30s quietly endure, an existential anxiety behind the outward grind. We live in an age of material comfort and spiritual disorientation. We have more options than ever, yet feel less meaning. Surrounded by constant stimulation, the hustle culture telling you to never stop working, the social media scroll feeding you other people's highlight reels, the dating apps reducing love to swipes, you're left feeling burnt out, disillusioned, and wondering why you're even doing any of it. 2 centuries ago, a German philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, foresaw this exact kind of despair. In a world growing skeptical of old certainties, Nietzsche issued a bold wake-up call. He declared, "God is dead, and we have killed him." This was not a celebration, but a diagnosis. The traditional sources of meaning, religion, absolute truths, societal norms, were losing their grip. The result, a creeping nihilism, a sense that life has no purpose. Nietzsche knew firsthand the agony and liberation of this realization, and he did not want us to simply collapse into despair or escape into comforting lies. Instead, he challenged us to face the void and create new meaning from our own souls. If you're a man feeling lost, cynical about feel-good platitudes and craving something deeper, Nietzsche's voice comes through the centuries like a jolt of lightning. He doesn't offer gentle reassurance or easy 5-step plans. He offers a ferocious kind of hope, the idea that within your crisis lies the seed of transformation. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how, Nietzsche wrote, reminding us that if we discover a powerful why, a purpose, we can endure and overcome almost any challenge. This isn't the sugary life coach message you might be used to. It's more like a slap to wake you from a stupor, followed by a genuine embrace of encouragement. Nietzsche's philosophy is a wake-up call to shake off complacency, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to take ultimate responsibility for crafting a meaningful life. Red flag number 1. Life feels meaningless to you. You struggle to find any reason to get out of bed beyond habit or fear. You might say, "I'm fine," but deep down you feel a void, no direction, no purpose, no why. Days blur together in a gray monotony. Nothing truly excites you, and even your successes feel hollow. This is the specter of nihilism creeping into your life, the sense that in the grand scheme, nothing matters. And it's one of the clearest signs you're stuck in a rut of the soul. Nietzsche understood this predicament more than most. He witnessed a Europe where faith in higher meanings was fading. When he said God is dead, he was expressing the shock of a culture that had lost its guiding star. Imagine the foundation of your worldview dissolving. For centuries, people's why was anchored in religion, in moral absolutes handed down from above. With that foundation gone, Nietzsche saw a danger: people might drift aimlessly or grasp for empty distractions to avoid facing the void. Nihilism to him was a crisis we must overcome, a call to find meaning anew not through handed-down truths, but by creating our own. Ask yourself, do you feel like you're just going through the motions? Perhaps you achieved what you thought would make life meaningful, a degree, a job, a relationship, and yet you still feel unsatisfied and empty. This is the modern form of the malaise Nietzsche predicted. You scroll through Netflix or YouTube for something to fill the evening, but nothing truly moves you. You might even indulge in escapism, binge drinking on weekends, endless video games, or diving into fleeting hookups, trying to drown out that gnawing sense of pointlessness. But come Monday morning, or the quiet Sunday afternoon, the emptiness returns. Nietzsche's wake-up call here is both alarming and empowering. First, he'd make you confront the fact that without a why, any how will feel unbearable. As he wrote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." If you lack a why, even the smallest inconveniences or hardships feel crushing because you don't see any value behind them. Consider how soldiers in war or parents protecting their children endure hardships with a fierce resolve. They have a clear why. By contrast, if you're slumped on your couch feeling that nothing is worth the effort, it's a sign your inner purpose has gone dormant. So what's the conventional response to this kind of existential dread? Often it's to seek refuge in something pre-packaged. Maybe you dive back into the religion you grew up with, hoping it will automatically restore meaning. Or you adopt a kind of stoic detachment, telling yourself, "It's just depression. I should regulate my emotions and carry on." Some turn to therapy or medication, which can help stabilize your mood. But even after all that, the deeper yearning for meaning remains. Traditional self-help might tell you to set goals, stay positive, practice gratitude. Those can be decent practices, but they're band-aids on a bullet wound if you fundamentally feel that life has no purpose. Nietzsche, instead, invites you to see this bleak, nihilistic moment as a crossroads rather than an endpoint. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the prophet Zarathustra comes down from the mountain to find people living without higher aspirations. They were comfortable, complacent, and had no deep why, much like many of us today who are merely content with comfort and shallow pleasures. Nietzsche didn't coddle them. He provoked them. He essentially says, yes, the old meaning might be gone for you, but that doesn't mean nothing matters. It means everything now rests on you. This is terrifying and liberating at once. If you see this red flag in yourself, if you feel the nihilism hang like a dark cloud, Nietzsche's challenge is to become the author of your own meaning. Instead of thinking nothing matters, so why bother flip it? If nothing inherently matters, then I am free to decide what matters. This is the insight that can jolt you out of paralysis. It's not easy. It's much simpler to collapse into despair or distract yourself with trivialities. Creating meaning is arguably the hardest and most heroic thing a person can do. But what's the alternative? To remain in that rut, slowly suffocating your spirit. Find a cause, a passion, or a vision that ignites a fire in you. It could be anything. Mastering a skill, contributing to knowledge, defending the powerless, creating art, raising a family in a better way. But it must come from your core values, rather than external expectations. Nietzsche believed in individual values creation. Where others might cling to ready-made answers, he'd urge you to sit with your existential pain and let it reveal what you truly care about. That discomfort is actually your friend. It's telling you that the way you're living now is not aligned with your authentic self. Remember, meaning is not something you find lying around. It's something you forge. Nietzsche saw us as pioneers in a post-dead God era, the murderers of all murderers, as he dramatically put it, who now have to become, in a sense, our own creators. This is the essence of his concept of the Übermensch, not a comic book hero, but a person who creates new values and purpose in a world where the old ones have died. We'll talk more about the Übermensch soon, but for now, know this feeling meaningless is a red flag, but it's also a summons to growth. It's the first critical step in your transformation. A meaningless life is unbearable, so dare to begin the work of finding your meaning. However small you start, even if it's just one little project or goal that feels meaningful to you and no one else, that's a seed of a why. Nietzsche's wake-up call for the nihilistic rut is harsh but hopeful. The void you feel is real, so don't run from it. Stare into that abyss, and then answer it by deciding that your life will mean something. Your task is to find a why strong enough to live for, and if need be to die for. Because with that why in your heart, you can bear almost anyhow. Perhaps you don't feel a dramatic sense of nihilistic emptiness. Perhaps instead you feel comfortably numb. Life is okay. It's fine. You have a decent job, a roof over your head, food on the table. Maybe you even have things that look like success. A steady paycheck, some status, a stable relationship. From the outside, nothing seems terribly wrong. And yet deep inside, you suspect you are shrinking. You avoid challenges, you cling to routines, and you haven't felt truly alive in a long time. This is the second red flag, being stuck in complacency, lulled by comfort. Nietzsche had a scathing name for the archetype of this state, the last man. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche presents the last man as the antithesis of the fulfilled human. Zarathustra comes down from the mountains to inspire people to strive for the Übermensch, but instead the crowd begs for the last man, a pathetic creature who wants only safety and simple pleasures. Alas, the time of the most despicable man is coming, he that is no longer able to despise himself. Behold, I show you the last man. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. The last man is content to live with no great ambition or risk. He asks, what is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star? And blinks. The sparkle of curiosity or passion has died in his eyes. All he wants is a comfortable, conflict-free existence. In Nietzsche's words, we have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. They mistake comfort for happiness, not realizing it's a pale imitation. Sound familiar? This portrayal from 1883 uncannily describes a lot of us today. Think of it, the hustle culture tells us to grind for luxury and convenience, essentially, to reach a point where we can just relax. The dream sold is early retirement, endless entertainment, food delivery on demand, a life where everything is easy. Or consider how technology has made things so effortless. Endless scrolling on TikTok or Instagram gives quick dopamine hits with no effort. Dating apps provide a buffet of options, so you never need to leave your comfort zone to meet someone. It's seductive, no doubt. But it's also soul-stifling if it becomes your norm. Maybe you notice that you deliberately avoid anything hard. You stick to what you know. Your job might not fulfill you, but you stay because it's stable, and changing careers or starting that business you dream of is too scary. You stay in a relationship that's fine, but not inspiring because the idea of being alone or dating anew is uncomfortable. Your daily routine hasn't changed in years. Same commute, same takeout dinner, same Netflix show to fall asleep. A part of you might even despise your own passivity. But as Nietzsche saw, the last man is no longer able to despise himself. You might be numbing that self-contempt with little pleasures, a new video game, another slice of pizza, an extra beer. All the while, life's great possibilities are passing you by. Nietzsche would grab you by the collar here. He'd say, "This comfort is a trap. It's the rut disguised as a cushion. Humans are not meant to coast. We're meant to strive. What is great in man," he wrote, "is that he is a bridge and not a goal. We are a bridge between what we are and what we could be, which implies movement, tension, risk. The moment we decide to settle to say good enough, I don't want to push further, we betray our potential." Nietzsche wasn't praising restless dissatisfaction for no reason. He was pointing out that all growth and creativity come from a willingness to live with some tension and risk. The contrast he set up is stark. On one hand, the last man who seeks only comfort and invented happiness. On the other hand, the Übermensch who embraces struggle and risk as the path to higher existence. The last man lives a long, safe life, avoiding pain and also avoiding profound joy or achievement. The Übermensch lives dangerously willing to risk even life itself for the sake of creating something great or becoming who he truly is. Now, conventionally, we're told it's sensible to be safe. Save money. Get a safe job. Don't rock the boat. Religions might promise a reward for being meek and modest, telling you not to aim too high in this life, but rather await happiness in the next. Even Stoicism, which is popular today, can be interpreted as saying, be content with what you have. There's wisdom in contentment, but Nietzsche issues a warning. Contentment can rot into complacency. When contentment means you stop growing because growth is uncomfortable, it has become a poison. Nietzsche believed life is inherently dynamic. To be alive is to constantly overcome yourself, to set challenges, and conquer them to climb. The moment you rest on a plateau, saying, "I'm done," you might as well be dead because your spirit starts to atrophy. Take a hard look at your life. Have you been choosing the easiest path too often? Do you avoid challenge, emotional, physical, intellectual? Because it's just nicer to stay in your bubble. If so, Nietzsche's laughing at how accurately you fit the last man description. But he wouldn't leave you there. He'd dare you to become something more. How to break out of this rut of complacency. Start by rekindling your capacity to despise what is unworthy in you. Not in a self-loathing way, but in a motivative way. The last man is no longer able to despise himself, meaning he's lost any critical drive to improve. Regain that spark of divine discontent. It's okay to say, "I am not going to accept this lukewarm life anymore." In fact, that's the first step to greatness. Nietzsche introduced Zarathustra as a figure who loved those who push themselves to their limits. In a poetic passage, he says, "I love him who lives in order to know and seeks to know in order to create. I love him who does not seek a cold comfort, but rather the heroic moments." This is the attitude to cultivate. Challenge yourself in some way every day. Do something that makes you uncomfortable. Strike up a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Sign up for that competition. Learn a skill that intimidates you. Expose yourself to new ideas that shake up your worldview. Disrupt your routines before they ossify into chains. Importantly, Nietzsche is not advocating senseless chaos or thrill-seeking for its own sake. The key is to pursue challenges that call to your higher self. It's not about reckless self-destruction. It's about intentional self-transcendence. If you're out of shape and living lazily, signing up for a marathon or a martial arts class might be a meaningful struggle. If you've been avoiding emotional vulnerability, asking someone out earnestly or openly discussing a fear with a friend is a bold step. These things will feel hard and uncomfortable. And that's the point. As Nietzsche says, "Thus asks the last man." And he blinks. Don't be that blinking last man. Ask yourself those bigger questions. What do I love so much I'd suffer for it? What could I create that would outlast me? What star do I aspire to reach? Remember, comfort is not happiness. Real happiness, Nietzsche would argue, is found in overcoming in the fiery exaltation of conquering a challenge in growth. The rut of comfort is one of the hardest to escape because it doesn't feel painful, it feels cozy. But the cost of staying cozy is that your life remains small. Nietzsche's wake-up call here is like a cold shower to your soul. Snap out of the trance of comfort. Life is short, and the clock is ticking. Do you want to reach the end, having never really lived, having chosen the couch over the quest? He exhorts us to reclaim the risk and adventure that inject meaning into existence. Live dangerously, he famously wrote, a line we'll revisit later. For now, take it as a personal slogan to combat your inner last man. Every time you catch yourself shrinking from an opportunity because it's too comfy where you are, remember Nietzsche basically roaring in your ear that the invented happiness of comfort is a poor substitute for the earned joy of growth. Don't settle for the blink of the last man. There's an overman within you, restless to take on life's greatness. Step out of the cozy rut and find out what you're capable of. Another sign you're stuck in a rut is a growing sense of bitterness about your life. Do you often find yourself blaming others or the world for your unhappiness? Maybe you're angry at your boss for your stalled career, resentful of women because of romantic rejections, or seething at society or the system for your woes. This chronic blame and resentment, what Nietzsche called ressentiment, is a huge red flag. It's like a poison that not only keeps you stuck, but eats you from the inside. Nietzsche did not mince words about this. Nothing on earth consumes a man more quickly than the passion of resentment. Think about that. Resentment is a passion, a burning emotion. But unlike passions that drive creation or love, this one consumes you. It's corrosive. When you're stuck in resentment, you're essentially drinking poison daily and expecting someone else to die. You stew over how you've been wronged or how life is unfair, and in doing so, you give away your power. Instead of finding a way forward, you're mentally stuck in a loop of victimhood. Nietzsche saw resentment as the lifeblood of what he termed slave morality. In his view, when people feel weak and impotent, they often cope by resenting those who have power or freedom. They might even invent moralities or ideologies that make their weakness into a virtue. For example, someone who feels powerless might say, "Actually, I'm better than those successful people because I'm humble and morally pure, and they are evil." This is resentment transmuted into a moral stance. We see this pattern in many forms. A man who's been repeatedly hurt in dating decides women are shallow and terrible. It's easier to sour grape and hate them than to face his own pain or growth. Or someone stuck in a dead-end job starts to despise all rich or successful people, writing them off as cheaters or oppressors, which conveniently excuses him from trying to improve his lot. Resentment gives a perverse comfort. It tells you that you're not at fault, the world is. But that comfort is poison, as Nietzsche tells us, because it consumes your strength without changing your situation. Do you feel that poison within you? Be brutally honest. Do you have a habit of internal monologues like, "It's my parents' fault. I'm so messed up. My ex ruined love for me, so why bother trying? If society wasn't so rigged, I'd totally be thriving. Or these idiots around me don't appreciate my talents. That's why I'm stuck." It's not that these thoughts are always entirely false. Maybe you did suffer real injustices or misfortunes. Nietzsche isn't denying that life can deal horrible hands. But his point is clinging to resentment keeps you from rising above those misfortunes. It traps you in the role of a sufferer, the one who was done wrong rather than the hero of your own story. Conventional thinking often urges forgiveness and letting go of anger, which is sound advice. But it sometimes fails to address the underlying mindset that breeds resentment, a feeling of powerlessness. Religion might tell you forgive your enemies and turn the other cheek. Stoic philosophy might say, don't worry about what you can't control. Psychology might encourage you to process your trauma and perhaps reframe your narratives. Nietzsche's approach cuts through differently. He basically says, stop seeing yourself as a victim altogether. In his ideal, you would be too occupied with building your own life, exercising your will to power, to even dwell on the injuries others caused you. He admired what he called masters, not in the sense of slave owners, but those with a masterful spirit who simply do create. And if something or someone harms them, they respond with decisive action, or they brush it off, but they don't stew in resentment. By contrast, the slave mindset harps on every slight, nurtures grudges, and defines itself by opposition to some enemy. You can see this in yourself whenever you define your motivation negatively. That might spur you for a while, but it's a toxic fuel that ultimately keeps your focus on them, not on you. Nietzsche would want you to purge this poison by taking your power back. This means radically honest self-reflection, yes. Maybe person X hurt you, or circumstance Y was unfair, but are you going to let that define you forever? As long as you blame you, hand over emotional control to the blamed. The key is almost paradoxical. You must own even the stuff that wasn't your fault. Not because it was your fault, but because taking ownership is the only way not to remain a psychological slave to it. This is reminiscent of a later thinker, Viktor Frankl, in the Nazi concentration camps. Frankl observed that those who found meaning and maintained some agency survived better. He quoted Nietzsche's, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Part of finding that why was letting go of resentment and instead saying, what can I do even here, even now? For Frankl, it was helping fellow prisoners or imagining lecturing about his experience in the future. For you, it might be turning your bitterness into a drive to better yourself. Let's ground this in a modern analogy. Suppose you're feeling resentment in dating. A lot of young men nowadays feel a kind of toxic cynicism toward women or relationships fueled by repeated disappointments and perhaps unhealthy online communities that reinforce negative stereotypes. The Nietzschean response would be, stop whining and elevate yourself. Instead of women only want X, it's hopeless, ask. What can I do to become more attractive, more confident, more interesting? Turn that energy inward in a constructive way. Or if you feel cheated by society, instead of festering in forums about how the elites or the system keeps you down, use that energy to find creative ways to improve your skills or step outside the conventional system altogether. Bitterness can be transmuted into motivation if you stop seeing the situation as fixed and yourself as a passive sufferer. Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, loving one's fate, can be helpful here. It means embracing everything that has happened to you, even the bad stuff, as fuel for your growth. Instead of resenting that, say, you had a harsh upbringing or were betrayed by a friend, you say, I accept that this is my story, and I'm going to make the best of it. In fact, I'm going to love that it happened because it gives me a unique power/insight/strength. This is not easy. It's almost a spiritual alchemy. But consider the alternative. Carrying bitterness forever is far harder, and it guarantees you stay in a rut. Nietzsche often praised the type of person who could transform all his hardships into greatness. In Ecce Homo, his autobiographical work, he reflects on how all the suffering he went through forged his philosophy. He cultivated a kind of defiant joy in the face of setbacks, even saying, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." That line has been cliched by now, but when he said it, it carried the weight of personal truth. To apply this notice when resentment flares up in you, catch yourself in the middle of a mental rant about how you were wronged. Then, in that moment, shift. Tell yourself, this feeling is a sign I need to take action for myself. If I'm jealous of a friend's success instead of resenting them, let it remind me of my own neglected ambitions and get to work on them. If I'm angry at an ex or a social group, let me channel that into becoming so fulfilled and confident that their opinions or actions no longer matter to me. Visualize resentment as a tether hooking you to the past and to other people's control. By an act of will, cut the tether. Even forgive if you can, not for their sake, but to unburden yourself. Forgiveness in Nietzsche's terms isn't a moral duty. It's a practical strategy to free up your energy for self-mastery rather than wasting it on vengeance fantasies or complaints. Nietzsche truly believed in self-overcoming, that the highest triumph is to overcome not external enemies, but inner ones. Resentment is an inner enemy. When you overcome it, when you can look at those who hurt you or situations that failed you and feel beyond them, indifferent or even grateful for the lessons, that is a moment of real empowerment. You transform from victim to creator of your life's narrative. So the red flag here is living in blame, constantly pointing fingers outward. Nietzsche's wake-up call: point the finger inward, not to blame yourself, but to find the power that's been there all along. Reclaim responsibility for your life. Every ounce of energy you spend resenting could be used to rebuild. As he wrote, "And nothing on earth consumes a man more quickly than the passion of resentment." Don't let it consume you one day more. Spit out that poison. Your rut might partly be made of grudges and complaints. Tear those down, and you'll clear space to move forward. Do you often feel like you're living a life that isn't really yours? Perhaps you pursued a career because your parents or society said it was the prestigious thing to do, not because you truly love it. Maybe you find yourself parroting opinions about politics, lifestyle, whatever, that you've picked up from your social circle or the internet without really examining if they're yours. You might even structure your hobbies, your fashion, your goals based on what gets approval, or at least avoids disapproval. If you resonate with that, then red flag number 4 is waving you're stuck in the herd mentality, sacrificing your individuality to fit in or please others. Nietzsche saw this as a major obstacle to living an authentic and fulfilling life. He had choice words for the pressure to conform. One of his aphorisms declares the surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. In other words, teaching someone that fitting in is better than standing out ruins them. Think about how that plays out in our lives from a young age. We're often rewarded for coloring within the lines, for not making trouble, for following the path that's been laid out. We learn that getting along means going along. In school or work, you likely dampen unpopular opinions to avoid alienation. On social media, there is intense pressure to show approved beliefs and lifestyles. We literally chase likes and fear the mob's backlash if we stray from the consensus. This herd instinct runs deep. For a Western male in particular, there are unspoken templates you might feel compelled to follow, maybe the corporate climber with the suit and nice car, or the ironic hipster with the acceptable range of edgy opinions, or even the tough guy who never talks about feelings stereotype. Whatever tribe you identify with, notice how it might be policing your identity. Are you making choices because you decided, or because you fear the judgment if you don't? If you're stuck in a rut, one reason might be that you've been living someone else's dream or values, so your motivation is running on fumes. Your soul isn't invested because it's not truly your path. Nietzsche championed the idea of the individual becoming a creator of values. He admired free spirits, those rare people who break away from the collective chorus and sing their own melody. This doesn't mean being contrarian for its own sake. It means genuinely thinking for yourself, choosing for yourself. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche critiques people who simply inherit their moral values from the crowd or tradition instead of creating them anew. Breaking from the herd is a prerequisite for finding your true strength. Of course, conventional wisdom highly prizes belonging. Psychology will tell you we all have a need to belong. Religions often demand conformity to the faith and its rules. Stray, and you're a sinner or an outcast. Society at large rewards those who keep the machine running smoothly, not those who question the gears. Even philosophies like Stoicism emphasize not worrying about others' opinions. But in practice, many Stoic advice forums turn into their own kind of herd, where everyone is trying to act like the ideal sage. The irony is that even movements of individuality can become herd-like. Nietzsche was painfully aware of this irony. He wanted each person to find their own way, which is by definition a path no herd will fully endorse because it's unique. Here's a personal check. Are there things you deeply disagree with or doubt, but you silence yourself because it's easier not to make waves? It could be as serious as a political ideology in your friend group, or as small as pretending to enjoy a popular activity you secretly find dull. Every time you bite your tongue or put on a facade to conform, a little piece of your authentic self is betrayed. Over years, that creates a profound inner rut. You're stuck being a person that isn't really you. That dissonance can lead to depression, anxiety, or just a continuous low-grade dissatisfaction. You wake up, follow your routine, do what you're supposed to do, yet you feel hollow. There's no fire, no joy, just obligation. Nietzsche called this being an automaton of duty. He warned, "What destroys a man more quickly than to work, think and feel without inner necessity." Modern life often celebrates this autopilot grind. We're praised for discipline and responsibility, yet Nietzsche saw the danger a life reduced to survival, not passion. If you're stuck in a job routine or lifestyle that drains you, but you keep going out of fear, habit, or pressure, you're not living, you're enduring. This includes even self-improvement. Maybe you meditate, exercise, eat clean, but only because you should not, because you love it. Even good habits can become soul-deadening when done without authentic desire. Nietzsche's ideal was the creator driven by necessity, the artist who must paint the thinker, who must wrestle with truth. Passion isn't always pleasurable, but it gives life weight and meaning. Without it, even success feels empty. So ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I have to? Where have I sacrificed joy for performance? And what small step can I take toward something that calls to me, not out of duty, but from the core of who I am? Because grinding for the sake of grinding isn't noble, it's slow spiritual decay. Nietzsche's wake-up call is this: don't just move, burn. Don't just function, create. Trade obligation for inner necessity. Even if the world doesn't understand it, your soul will. Nietzsche's philosophy offers a powerful framework for breaking free from the stagnation of routine and embracing a life of growth and meaning. He challenges the conventional notion of duty, arguing that blind adherence to obligation can lead to resentment and a life unlived. True responsibility, he suggests, is chosen aligned with one's values and driven by inner necessity, not external pressure. He critiques the automaton of duty, the individual who goes through the motions without passion or joy, merely fulfilling external scripts and expectations. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power emphasizes our fundamental drive to assert our will and expand our influence over our own lives. Living on autopilot, driven by shoulds instead of wants, surrenders. this will to external programs stifling the human spirit. Breaking free involves infusing conscious choice into our routines, questioning our motivations, and recognizing that even seemingly unavoidable obligations often present hidden choices. He champions risk and authenticity, urging us to confront the consequences of bold choices rather than living as hollow shells out of fear, while acknowledging the value of responsibility, particularly when fueled by love or passion. Nietzsche encourages us to find or create meaning in our actions, turning duty into a willingly born sacrifice. He advocates for injecting Dionysian energy, wildness, creativity, and sensuality into our lives to break free from robotic routines and reconnect with our humanity. Furthermore, Nietzsche champions solitude as crucial for self-discovery and transformation. He warns against the trap of fearing loneliness, which can lead to clinging to unfulfilling relationships and avoiding the necessary self-confrontation that arises in quiet moments. Solitude, he argues, allows us to confront hard truths about ourselves, to wrestle with our inner demons, and discover untapped strengths. It fosters self-reliance and the ability to connect with others from a place of strength and authenticity rather than dependence. It is in solitude that we cultivate the inner strength to stand apart, to maintain our boundaries, and to choose companions who truly resonate with us. Finally, Nietzsche passionately exhorts us to live dangerously. He criticizes the prison of the unlived life, built by avoiding risk and clinging to certainty. He believes that truth and greatness are found at the edge of our comfort zones, where real stakes are involved. He encourages us to build our cities on the slopes of Vesuvius, to send our ships into uncharted seas, to embrace uncertainty and challenge. He recognizes that major turning points in life involve risk, and avoiding risk is to avoid growth and transformation. While conventional wisdom emphasizes caution, Nietzsche warns that excessive risk aversion leads to mediocrity. True living demands a balance, embracing the potential for loss and pain alongside the possibility of reward and exhilaration. He encourages us to take risks in all dimensions of life, intellectual, moral, emotional, and experiential, and to view failure not as defeat, but as a source of strength and wisdom. Nietzsche's philosophy offers a potent antidote to the feeling of being stuck in a rut, a common ailment in our age of comfort and spiritual disorientation. He challenges us to live dangerously, not recklessly, but with an awareness that true growth comes from embracing risk and uncertainty in all dimensions of life: intellectual, moral, emotional, and experiential. Often our risks are calculated mere entertainment, lacking the potential for genuine loss that gives life meaning. Nietzsche urges us to jump without a net to confront our fears of failure, pain, and the unknown, recognizing that even in falling, we learn and grow. Great individuals, he argues, are hardened by their failures, wearing their scars as marks of pride. He encourages cultivating amor fati, a love of fate, embracing everything that happens as fuel for growth. This mindset allows us to venture into uncertainty, knowing that whatever comes, we will handle it and learn from it. Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence, imagining living the same life repeatedly, pushes us to live so boldly that we'd willingly embrace every experience again. Breaking free from stagnation requires action. Find your why, your guiding purpose, and write it down. Practice saying no to obligations that don't align with your values, creating space for what truly matters. Embrace discomfort daily, pushing beyond your comfort zone in small but meaningful ways. Cultivate creativity, shifting from passive consumer to active creator. Schedule solitude for self-reflection and honest self-dialogue, confronting your inner shadows and discovering your strengths. Challenge inherited beliefs, ensuring they are truly your own. And finally, embrace adventure-seeking experiences that inject novelty and challenge into your life. Nietzsche's wake-up call is not gentle, but it is hopeful. It reminds us that within us lies the capacity to transform, to shed old skins, and grow wings. This transformation requires courage, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and the acceptance of risk. But the reward is immense: the freedom of owning yourself, your mind, your values, and your destiny. It is the freedom to become who you are, to live authentically, and to dance on the edge of certainties, creating a life of meaning and purpose.